Hi, and welcome to Ends Division. I'm Glenn Reynolds from the sunny LA studios of PJTV. So how influential are libertarians becoming in America's political scene? We're going to ask one of America's most influential libertarians. I'm joined by Virginia Postrel. She's an author, she's a columnist for the Wall Street Journal, a former editor of Reason magazine, and you can find her blog at dynamist.com. So how have you seen libertarianism evolve, Virginia, since the days when you edited Reason?
Well, there's a long answer to that question, but certainly in the last couple of years, in response to what Mitch Daniels, governor of Indiana, has called Obama's shock and awe statism, there's been a resurgence of activism looking for smaller government. And some of that has come from people who are traditionally self-defined as libertarian. A lot of it has come from people who weren't necessarily involved in politics before. So there's been a kind of push from the grassroots looking for alternatives to this kind of, ironically, really big government has been good for the idea of smaller government.
Yeah, you know, the shock and awe, did not shock people into submission. It rather shocked them into reacting, which I think may not have been the original intent. Now, do you think the GOP is paying attention to libertarian priorities, or are they just giving lip service to it as they move on with their favorite causes?
Well, first of all, it depends on your definition of libertarian. I personally, if you can go on my Facebook page, where I actually do most of my blogging these days, I call myself a classical liberal, which is a broader term. There's a lot of some libertarians spend a lot of time looking for heretics.
Oh, yes.
And deciding that this person isn't really, Milton Friedman, terrible heretic, not a good libertarian, Friedrich Hayek, oh my God, he was for a minute, so not to mention you and me.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's easy to say, well, of course, nobody in the GOP ever is a libertarian. Nobody in elective office is ever a libertarian. They're never, the very fact of governing means that you're not going to be purist.
Right, you can only be pure by being ineffectual, right?
Right. And even Ron Paul, bad on abortion, So, gay rights, bad. So, I think that compared to the period of the Bush administration, when the GOP establishment was actually, I won't say they were anti-libertarian, because that would suggest that they took libertarians seriously, but they were very a-libertarian. It was a big government agenda for the most part. I think there is a much greater awareness that this is a phenomenon in America that needs to be taken seriously.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to me to see that happen, and mostly gratifying. I have to say, although it was funny for me, especially in the early days of the Tea Party movement, to see a lot of libertarian commenters sort of diss them, and because they weren't culturally right,
Well, there is a disturbing populist element within the Tea Party movement, and it cuts across the libertarianism, and that is again, it's one of these half empty, half full, or even 1/4 empty versus 3/4 full kind of thing. If you're looking for people who are exactly like you, you're unlikely to find them in American politics, whatever you're like, and certainly if you are an intellectual. And I think that was part of what was going on there.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, who are you paying attention to? Who do you like in the run-up to the 2012 elections? Any favorites?
Well, my favorite is Mitch Daniels, and why is that? Well, the short reason is he goes around saying, there's this great book called The Future and Its Enemies that really inspires me. And, I don't agree with Mitch Daniels on everything. I don't agree with anybody on everything. I don't agree with even my husband on everything, although a lot of things don't. But I do think he did an interview for thebrowser.com with Jonathan Rauch, where he talked about his 5 books that influenced him, one of which was my book. That was the most recent of them. But it was, Hayek, The Road to Serfdom. It was Milton Friedman. It was even Mansur Olson's thoughts about the way you get gridlock in politics.
The Rise and Decline of Nations.
The Rise and Decline of Nations. He talked about
book.
more than one book, and as he did with Friedman and Hayek also. But I think he is a very thoughtful guy who understands how you make government work in a more freedom-oriented direction. And he is also, which you don't often find in thoughtful, well-read guys, has a real popular touch. He relates to the regular man or woman, and he is, I find that a very unusual combination, and I think it's very helpful.
Well, he certainly, pulled a Walker by executive order and somehow managed to do it without nearly as much of a stink.
Well, I think that's partly because he really understands the politics of his state, and it's also because he's not a polarizer by nature. He takes very strong stands, but he finds ways to get a majority. And he made some comments in a recent speech. By the way, at this point, he writes all his own speeches too, which is, as a writer, kind of nice. But he's made comments which have made some conservatives and Republican activists upset about how you've got to get the people who don't listen to Rush Limbaugh and aren't active in this way. But I think that's true. It's just mathematically true. Right, you have to have 51%, right, unless you're counting on Mike Bloomberg to somehow split the liberal vote, and you'll get in that way. But barring some third-party aid, you're going to have to get 51%, and if you want to govern, you got to get 51%.
Okay, total subject change, because one of your other areas, besides sort of libertarian politics and thought, is glamour and aesthetics. And over at Deep Glamour, you point out that Michelle Obama and Eva Peron have something in common. What is that?
Yes, I don't think Michelle Obama knows about this. They both wear pearls. Or Eva Peron, of course, the wife and politician, late wife of the late fascist-leaning Argentine dictator. There's a company called Carol Lee Jewelry, which is promoting its style icons. And it's Jackie Kennedy and Michelle Obama from U.S. First Ladies, and Eva Peron and Wallace Simpson, another
real admirable woman,
another fascist-leaning figure. And I suspect that the White House and the First Lady's office have absolutely no idea of this, because in fact, when a much less controversial assertion was, an ad was made of a windbreaker company with a picture of the president wearing their windbreaker on the Great Wall of China. The White House asked that that ad be removed, and it was after they got the requisite publicity. I rather doubt that Mrs. Obama has any idea that she's being linked with a fascist first lady, stylish, glamorous fascist first lady, but it seems an abuse of the image.
You think? Yeah, I'd say so. Like I say, at least it wasn't the many dumpy fascist first ladies, dumpy and frumpy, all those Soviet spouses. But
that's true. It wasn't Imelda Marcos.
That's all you can say for it. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here. It's great to have you, and I hope we'll have you back soon.
Thank you.
Virginia Postrel is a columnist for the Wall Street Journal, the author of multiple books, including The Substance of Style and The Future of Its Enemies, and she's also the editor-in-chief of deepglamour.net. She blogs at dynamist.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at VPSTREL, which looks like V Postrel, but without the O.
No, that's not right.
Oh,
it is with O.
Oh, then it's just wrong on my teleprompter. All right, let's go back and do that close over again. Oh, I just saw them fix it.
Yeah.
I just read what's on there.
No.
Call me Ron Burgundy here, but.
We'll do that again. Stand by.
Virginia Postrel is a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. She's the author of books including The Substance of Style and The Future of Its Enemies. She's also the editor-in-chief of deepglamour.net. She blogs at dynamist.com, and you can follow her on Twitter at VPostrel. We'll be back soon here on Instavision. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, have fun on the internet. Thanks.